There are many stories of chivalry, where the heroic knight saves the damsel in distress. This is not one of them.
It's a lie.
Yeah, her dad saves her. In fact, she gets saved 3 different times in this movie. But the confused premise isn't the main issue with this film. I'm RT, and today we're going to be taking a peek at Damsel, the Netflix original girl boss training film. But before I get into what the main issue is and how it can be fixed, let me give you a quick spoiler-filled summary. LOD is a princess from a poor kingdom. A messenger arrives with a marriage proposal from a prince of an unknown wealthy country. He's never seen her, so it's not like the prince fell in love or lost with her. They have no wealth or power. They're not even close by, so why did he go to such lengths to propose this marriage?
She will do.
Who says that about the decision to marry off their crown prince? I spent the first act of this movie just repeatedly asking, why are they marrying you? Why is no one asking this? Why is no one suspicious? It felt like I was watching Don't Look Up, where there's clearly an asteroid hurtling towards Earth, but everyone just ignores it. Even the prince doesn't seem keen. That face should have been another red flag. But instead of asking this, she just puts up a mild protest and goes along with it.
The land where I come from is exactly how your mother explained. Harsh and barren. This union will save us.
Ah, here we go. She's finally about to ask the question.
I've made my peace with it. My happiness is a small price to pay for the future of my people.
What? Oof, that is not what you want to hear from your new bride.
You settled on a fair bride price.
They were literally expecting to be paid a bride price. What for? How could this union possibly benefit them? To be fair, the stepmother does get a little suspicious when the queen blatantly tells her that it's just a transaction, that they don't need any more family, that they're buying a bride. So they get married. The prince leads her up to a creepy, secret ceremony in the mountain. The queen explains that there's a beast who they were forced to sacrifice their princesses to, and she's thrown in the pit. You just got told how they sacrifice princesses and then got yeeted down here. What'd you expect them to do? Throw you a rope and be all, oh sorry, I tripped. Luckily you screamed, or I would have never bothered to check if you were still alive. So yeah, she screams for no reason after being told that she was down there with a beast and wakes it up. Side note, stupid characters are kind of a pet peeve of mine. I'm thinking about doing a video on how to get characters into dangerous situations without making them act like morons. Let me know and subscribe if you want to see that. So she basically spends the next hour running away from the beast. And for a poor girl pressured into an arranged marriage and sacrificed to a dragon, she's the luckiest girl in the world. Given a knife and a lantern for some reason, open wounds never get infected, no matter what. The light goes out, but don't worry, there's glowworms in that part of the tunnel. Her dress catches her from falling into a chasm. The worms just happen to have super healing powers. Oh, and there's even a map to a supposed exit. Yeah, the girl who drew the map didn't escape and then come back to draw a map. This movie claims to be a subversion, girl boss, girls having each other's backs kind of story, but if anything, she continually screws over other girls, unlike Victoria. She could have shared her knowledge about the healing worms. She could have dropped the crown back down the hole for the next girl, but no, she never even thinks about the other girls, which makes this line.
I have an army with me. Every innocent woman whose life was stolen down here.
Run a little hollow. She then realizes that the dragon's babies were murdered by the old king, and they have to sacrifice their princesses as a punishment. To avoid sacrificing their own daughters, they marry and combine blood with random princesses from across the world to fool the dragon and avoid this punishment. The dragon catches and is about to kill her when her dad comes to save her, distracting the dragon just in time.
I'm here for my daughter.
He wouldn't smell of the Aurea bloodline. Shouldn't that have tipped the dragon off that something is amiss? He literally says, I'm your father, multiple times. The dragon even says it. The dad then basically spells out the entire trade deal he made, and the dragon is still somehow not clued in. He even has a different coat of arms on his armor. How many clues does this dragon need to be like, hey, wait a minute? And you might say that that's a tiny detail, maybe the dragon didn't notice. But the dragon literally stabs him, slowly, through the coat of arms to kill him. Then another man makes a noise at a convenient time, distracting this ADHD dragon yet again, allowing LOD to escape.
Use the ropes.
Using the ropes isn't even her idea. Her dad tells her to do it. She's just doing what she's told. At times, this movie really does feel more like an intentional parody of the strong independent woman cliche. The queen then takes her little sister to the dragon as a replacement. Elodie goes back to the mountain to save her sister, fights the dragon, and tells her how the royal family have been misleading her this whole time. She comes back to the castle. The prince says, she's the last, then I'll be free to marry whoever I want. Right in front of his new bride. Yikes. I really don't get what they were trying to do with this prince. At first, he seems super uncomfortable and detached, as you'd expect with him knowing what's going to happen to her. But then, he's holding hands, chatting friendly with her, actively getting to know her, making plans to travel together, grinning and smiling, right up to the point where he tosses her down into the lair. Okay, so maybe he's a psychopath who enjoys this. Then what's with him defending her sister and giving these excuses? If he's so ravaged with guilt, they could have shown that while they're getting to know each other, shown that it's eating away at him. It would have been a great way to build suspense and dread to the horrible fate that he knows awaits her. Having him show signs of resistance, maybe he won't meet her eye, or is holding back tears as they marry. But no, he's smiling still. Okay? How can you go from laughing and grinning like an idiot to throwing her to her death? I think they wanted the prince to be just a good guy in a bad situation who grows fond of LOD, which leads him to do the right thing in the end. But they also wanted him to be a creepy psychopath who cheerfully lures girls to their death and would have continued to do so had LOD not saved the day by killing him. Yeah, you can't have it both ways. But anyway, the dragon burns the royal family and they sail off into the sunset, after pillaging the royal coffers, of course. So clearly, there's a lot of issues with the story, like a lot. But I want to focus on what I consider to be the main issue, the thing that, if they fixed, it still could have been a half-decent movie. And this is LOD's character. For us to care about this, we need to be emotionally invested with LOD, and for us to be emotionally invested, she needs to be more than just a cardboard cutout. They wanted to subvert the one-dimensional female character used as a prize or motivation for male characters by creating a strong female character. However, you can't just shove a sword into that one-dimensional character's hand, open her mouth, and make her say,
I am woman, hear me roar.
Instead, a strong female character is one who is complex, multidimensional, flawed with struggles to overcome through character growth. Basically, one who's written to be a strong character who also just happens to be female. Character depth. If you're gonna start with her in her home with her family, use it for the audience to get to know her, learn her motivations, her wants, her needs, and establish her relationships. All we know about LOD is that she comes from a cold, poor country. She chops down the last trees in her realm to burn as a solution to the cold. She wants adventure and draws mazes. That's it.
I see she arrives with some wit.
Should you want it or not?
If she's meant to be a witty character, actually show us this. They could have killed two birds by writing her some better dialogue from the start to show that she's witty and tell us who she is, what she cares about. Instead, we get this.
Why are they leaving? There's nothing left for them here, Floria.
Well, maybe that's because your grand economic plan is to sell your sister's drapes. She's basically just an exposition mouthpiece, even when we don't need it.
A map. Music. Crystals.
Thanks for explaining that those were crystals. Internal and external conflict. A great way for the audience to learn about characters and relationship dynamics is through conflict. External conflict. Hey, it's already been set up. The realm is struggling with poverty and potential famine through winter. They could have shown us how she plans to address this, which would tell us a lot about her cunning and values, as well as family dynamics if they showed how her plans conflicted with those of her father. If they wanted to go for a fantasy girl power thing, they could have made her a magic wielder who's been secretly practicing at home because women are forbidden from using magic. That would at least remove the need for BS magic healing worms and her sudden ability to fight an effing dragon. Or maybe something as simple as she finds the proposal suspicious, and this causes a disagreement with her family, who think she's just being ungrateful for this opportunity and selfish for putting her feelings before the needs of the kingdom. Also, leaving her home doesn't feel like a sacrifice at all. She's not really leaving anyone behind. Does she have any friends she'll miss? There's never so much as a hint of her having any friends. She doesn't even seem that attached to her homeland.
Harsh and barren.
Mother wanted you to fight.
They had to include the word mother here. It could have just been, you wanted me to fight, because we as the audience would have had no idea who she was talking about, because we know exactly nothing about her mother or their relationship. The movie is trying to collect emotional dividends for a character relationship they forgot to show. If we'd gotten to know her family, their dynamic, attachments, it'd have made her father's sacrifice and betrayal of her way more impactful. Internal conflict. What are her character flaws? What does she need to work on? What's holding her back from achieving her goals or becoming the person she wants to be? What does she fear? This is what deepens and fleshes out a character. It gives them something to struggle with and overcome over the course of the story. But she has none of this. It's like the writers were working off a very simplistic checklist. Interests? I don't know, make her doodle a maze a couple of times. Values? She's a princess, so I guess she cares about her people. And we'll show this by her chopping wood. Dreams? She wants to travel. Check, check, check. No deep thought required. No need to go into why she wants to travel, where she wants to go, or what's been holding her back. And this leads us to character arc. How does she grow and change? Does she face any fear or character flaw? Does she grow at all? It's kind of hard for a character to have an arc when they have no internal conflict. A very simple arc they could have used would be for her to want to be a good ruler for her people and protect her family. But she's sheltered, fearful, and lacks self-confidence. Voila! Internal conflict. They could have shown this by her catching her father's advisor, leeching from and impoverishing the kingdom. But she lacks the confidence to confront him and is easily shut down by a harsh look or a comment about her lack of capabilities. They could have shown the advisor joking with her father about how he hopes he's still around when she becomes queen because she'll certainly need him. He could even be the one to convince her father to arrange the marriage, getting himself a nice cut in the process. But then, over the course of the story, show her gaining confidence in herself and her abilities through the adversity she experiences, learning to trust herself. She runs and hides in the cavern, waiting to be saved. But then, she does things to survive. She begins to build confidence in herself. She makes her own plan and executes it. This would be far more inspiring to watch. Why? Because she's grown as a character. She's overcome her flaws and faced her fears. And when she comes out victorious, having used her wits to escape the lair, she's no longer that timid, self-doubting girl. The change would show at the end when she has the confidence to stand up to the advisor and speak her mind to her father, rather than her resolve collapsing at the first sign of him doubting her. But in the movie, there's absolutely no character growth. Sure, she's scared and runs when there's a dragon after her, like anyone would. But she doesn't make the decision to escape because of a character change. She just escapes when there's an opportunity to, when her dad comes into the cavern and leaves a rope hanging. She stops running and returns to face the dragon to save her sister. But this doesn't feel like a big character growth moment because she hasn't actually changed. She simply has a reason to go back now, whereas before, there was no reason to confront the dragon. She hasn't learnt anything about herself. She doesn't appear to be struggling with anything as she makes this decision. They didn't even set up her character as being particularly protective of her sister. How is she different from the start of the movie compared to the end? She has more expensive clothes. Using conflict would not only make the first act more interesting by fleshing out the characters, relationship dynamics, motives, and the overall world, but it would also make us far more invested in her story and give her a chance to grow and change. Agency. Now, I don't think characters receiving help or being saved is actually a bad thing, male or female. However, well-written characters, particularly the protagonist, should be active. They should be making decisions and acting upon them to propel the story forward. That's what makes them interesting to watch. LOD spends the entire movie being blown around like a paper tissue in the wind. She puts up a light protest to the arranged marriage. For the sake of her people, she's pushed into it, but it doesn't feel like her choice. Even having her dad say, "Look, I get this isn't your idea of a dream marriage. It would help our people, but ultimately, it's your decision." Could have been better. They could have shown us her mulling it over and making the final decision herself, and owning that decision, not begrudgingly agreeing to it and then sulking about it at every opportunity.
Elodie, what's the matter?
My happiness is a small price to pay for the future of my people.
Or alternatively, she could have been excited to marry the rich prince that she's never met, like Sansa, and learn that fairy tales are not reality. Or even having her be manipulated into it, and her growing as a character is becoming less gullible by the end. It would tell us so much more about her, her father, and their dynamic. There were so many options. Now, let's compare this to a complex, strong female character. Depth. She's protective of and feels like she needs to fill the mother role for her sister. And why does she feel this way? Because her mother failed them when their father died due to depression, and they nearly starved. Due to this, she has a very complicated relationship with her mother, and I haven't even gone into the complicated relationship she has with Gale and Peter. Katniss's love and care for her sister is the first thing we see of her, singing her the same song she eventually sings to Rue as she lays dying. Immediately we know that she can't bear to see others in pain, particularly innocents. But she's also blunt.
I'll still cook you.
She doesn't care about being polite or politically correct,
So why are you here then?
which allows for further conflict as she rubs others the wrong way. She has experience hunting and gathering as she was taught by her father, and this is how she kept her family and food after his death. So it makes sense that she can use a bow. All her skills are shown before she needs them to survive. She doesn't just magically become a badass because the plot says so. She's not perfect, even at the things she's skilled at. She's not invincible, which makes us invested in whether or not she'll survive. Also, hunting is illegal, which shows us that she doesn't really care about following the rules or being a good girl and doing what she's told. It's a major part of her personality, which is shown throughout and comes full circle when she refuses to follow their rules. They don't get to have their victor. I'm not doing what I'm told and murdering my friends because they say I have to. Her personality and internal struggles make sense given her history and are designed to put her at odds with a societal structure which naturally creates conflict in the story while also reinforcing the theme. She goes against everything the capital stands for, being blunt where they expect manners, defiant where they expect submission. They preach looking out for yourself at everyone else's expense.
And may the odds be ever in your favor.
While she cares and sacrifices for others. Through her introduction, we learn who she is, her personality traits, what she values, what she cares about, and what she's willing to do to meet those needs. And all of this ties in naturally with her history and the trauma she's experienced. We get to know her family and friends, and the relationship dynamic and history they share. I'm not saying all strong characters need to be blunt and defiant, but they do need to have their own individual personality traits, desires, and values. Ones that make sense considering their history and the world they live in. And ones that put them at odds with other characters or the societal structure make for great conflict and sets them up to be proactive. Internal and external conflict. External conflict. Her main motivation to protect her sister is shown even before the reaping. The only reason she stays in this oppressive society, endangering her life, is to protect her sister. She could leave and live in the forest, but she won't abandon Prim. Her need to protect her sister means surviving the Hunger Games to come home to her. Internal conflict. Her internal conflict is that she struggles to trust or accept help from anyone else. She's fiercely independent and fears having to depend on others. This comes from her trauma of depending on her mother, who failed her. This is shown by her pushing people away. This
You say you want to train alone? Is that how you want to play?
is her weakness. This is her strength. Her strength is her caring heart. Her weakness is the wall she's built around it. A strong character doesn't necessarily mean physically strong. It means complex, layered, and yes, flawed, but ultimately proactive when it comes to pursuing their goals and upholding their values. Character arc. Katniss learns to trust and work with others. She goes from making jabs at Hamish to allowing him to mentor her.
There'll even be a bow there. Don't go for it.
Why not?
She goes from distrusting and assuming the worst of Peter
I'm just kidding. I'll go pick some stuff.
to working with him. This is a show of trust.
Together?
Together.
It shows that she's allowed Peter past her barriers. In the arena, she doesn't just march in and dominate, she's faced with her need to protect, her refusal to give up on others, and learns to work with, accept help from, depend on, and trust others. This is how she grows and changes as the story unfolds. Agency. Now, you might be thinking, why did you criticize LOD for being helped and saved if you're gonna use Katniss accepting help as an example of character growth? Well, for one, it's not character growth if she's not shown to be struggling to accept help from the start. And two, Damsel's entire selling point is that she saves herself, so I think it's just hilarious that she doesn't. Katniss is an active character. She isn't pressured into taking her sister's place. She volunteers, knowing it's a death sentence to save her sister. She spends the entire movie making active choices, even when there's sometimes mistakes.
I volunteer! I volunteer! I volunteer as tribute!
This isn't just Katniss girlbossing for the sake of girlbossing either. She's always acted like a pseudo-mother for Prim, protecting her. It makes sense for a character to sacrifice herself to protect her. As she's not fearless, thinking, well, she has plot armor, so obviously she's going to march into the arena, completely obliterate her opponents, and walk out of there, brushing the dust off her shoulders. No, you can clearly see that she doesn't believe she'll survive this.
Listen, Prim. Gail will bring you game. You can sell cheese from your goat. I won't be there anymore. You're all she has. You have to be there for her. Do you understand?
You can see the anger, mixed with pain, fear, and love. This is all shown, not told. So, how do you write a good girl boss movie? First, write a good movie. Prioritize giving the characters depth. You can't just give a girl a sword and call it a day. Write characters that have a logical conflict within themselves, as well as with each other and the world they live in. This will help create a solid plot as the characters work to resolve their conflicts. This will probably mean that you'll have some strong male characters too. There may be a focus on something other than girl power, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can still have a story that shows the strength of women, that doesn't shove it down our throat and wash it down with absolutely nothing of substance. You don't have to cut down men to build women up. To be honest here, when I was a kid, I hated the female characters that I saw in movies. But when I saw the original Mulan, I loved her! And I realised that these characters that I hated so much were written by men who see women as a collection of stereotypes. These men are still out there making movies, but now they think if they give their one-dimensional girl character a sword, all us one-dimensional women in the real world will cheer and hand over fistfuls of cash. Well, it's not working. And look, I know some of these strong female characters are written with good intention, trying to give women positive representation. But women are not perfect, and writing women who are perfect in every way, good at everything they touch, with no flaws to overcome, isn't representation. It erases our existence. You cannot write a female character that represents all women. Women are individuals who come in all shapes and sizes, with the same range of personality traits and flaws as men. A strong female character doesn't have to be physically strong, but she does need to be a fully fleshed out individual with her own desires, beliefs, fears and struggles, who grows through adversity, overcomes personal obstacles and fears, and comes out the other end a stronger, wiser person than she was before. I just want to say, Millie Bobby Brown did an incredible job with what she was given. I wish I could have seen what she would have done with a better script. I'm RT, and this has been just a peek at Damsel. This is my very first video, so please let me know if you liked it, and subscribe if you'd like to see more.